are these people?
Who are these people? Hey, everybody, it's Indy. It is INN One-on-One, and I'm here again with my buddy, researcher, live streamer extraordinaire, 7Cs. What's up, bro?
Hey, how's it going, Indy?
I'm good. Yeah, this is a follow-up kind of to our last one about a month ago, and you've been all over the place, as we've seen, doing interviews. You were recently featured as a guest on the Macroaggressions podcast, I saw, doing more stuff with a bunch of different people, and I love seeing that.
Oh, yeah. Appreciate that, man.
And doing your own live streams, too, now publishing to Substack, written a couple of articles. We're going to go over a couple of those. For those who don't know, 7C's been over on Twitter. You can follow him. His handle is right there underneath his name at 7 SEES _. All right. And I figured I would kind of give you a little opportunity to share about so the live streams that you've been doing lately have been like 4 and 5 hour research marathons. All right.
Yeah.
For those who don't watch, and you just kind of share your process and take everybody on a journey with you. It feels like in going down a rabbit hole. And I guess maybe you have like an inclination throughout the day or through something that's been festering in the back of your mind as you've been seeing something. You're like, I'm going to decide to do a deep dive on X today.
Yeah.
And then, the people who show up kind of help. And it's a collaborative effort, which I think is really cool. And so, yeah, tell us about like how you started figuring out how to do that. And I think you talked a little bit about that last time. So I really wanted to this time go into some of the actual stories and things that you're doing. And a lot of that, again, if they watch the whole stream, they pull out a lot of things, but it's kind of hard to extrapolate what do we need to know from all of this, and what does all of this mean, and what can we do as a result? And that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about now, and kind of give you a chance, rather than just researching, but to tie it all together and say, okay, here's what this all means. So yeah, let's get into it. So what has been picking at your brain lately? You mentioned Trevor Fitzgibbon. I know you did. Mm-hmm. Flynn and Bannon and Jordan Peterson. So, man, all you go for it. Here, let me make you big. Tell me what you got.
Absolutely. So as far as like the live streams go, as I started doing this, I realized that very quickly that there is way too much information that is out there to be researched and investigated for one single person to do so. So this not only allows me to sort of branch out and, utilize other people's research and things like that, but it also, I've noticed that a lot of people that come into my chats and share things are other researchers, fellow researchers that maybe haven't had as much luck in the algorithms. I don't know what it is that has allowed me to even break past 10K, but it allows them to come in and say things like, there's this thing that I've been digging into and nobody will look at it. Will you look at it and we'll explore it together and see like who all's involved, and we'll cross-reference things and we'll verify sources in real time and things like that. And it basically provides me the ability to map everything out, keep everything organized, but also provide a visual to everybody to show people. Anytime I'm reading like a long article or a list of things that someone's involved with, it's really hard for me to see just how bad it is or how involved somebody is or how tied somebody is to something. But using these maps, it allows me to sort of visualize that and paint that picture for people to show them just how many different things are branching off of these different people and these companies and entities and operations and stuff. And it's been great.
And showing like how they're connected and what the relationships yield, and that this one's an affiliate of this thing, which then leads to all the people that seem to be an affiliate of a certain organization have some kind of an agenda that they're pushing. or some kind of an agenda that they're ignoring. And it helps you see patterns. I love that whole crowdsourced idea of doing this. So again, you started to do a deep dive. It looks like on Michael Flynn the last couple days, and figuring out like who he's linked with. Is he still like heavily involved and influential at this point? I mean, I don't play in that circle in the whole MAGA / alt-right wherever he was before. QAnon, even I saw that it touched on QAnon and Roger Stone, even potentially. Yeah.
It's honestly kind of crazy because just in this last week, I've seen so many people, especially from Mike Flynn's network, and people that I've actually put on this web that are posting and saying things like, Donald Trump should consider Mike Flynn for the NSA position again. And I see people like Laura Logan, who's part of Flynn's America's Future. She was just on InfoWars today, earlier this morning. And I think that, when it comes to people that are still like bought into the Flynn stuff and the QAnon stuff and the co-opted Pizzagate narrative and things like that, I think that Flynn is still very influential in a specific type of way, in that I think that the consent or the rallying behind him is largely manufactured. I think that influencers through things like the Wellness Company and various other, entities and stuff that are wrapped up in the Eric Prince stuff, I think that they are basically generating or manufacturing, I guess, like buy-in for these things. So, if there's a particular position on an issue, or something comes out like the Donald Trump Netanyahu thing, where everyone's saying, oh, now he's snubbing Netanyahu and they're not getting along, and so like all that's not true.
He's turning on Israel.
Yeah. and all the accounts that I'm seeing are people that are either associated with things like the Wellness Company, or they're wrapped up in something to do with Michael Flynn. So I think he's a lot more influential than people give him credit for. And especially like doing all my digging into like things like Racine, Wisconsin and stuff, and the ties to Microsoft and big tech, and there's a whole lot going on here.
That's where the Foxconn factory was, right, in Racine? Because I remember there was a whole thing about that.
Yeah, a lot of the Operation Stargate stuff, so like data centers and mRNA technology and different things are all coming out of Racine. I think Donald Trump said that it was the 8th wonder of the world.
Oh man, that's when remember when they were trying to make Scott Walker a thing nationally? He was a horrible governor up there, and I know he's probably still involved in Racine and in those kinds of projects, because guys like that don't go away. He's been, and then all of a sudden he'll come back with a vengeance. Yeah,
or you have Brad Smith. He's from Microsoft. He's out of Racine, and he's talking about, did you see that TAMM thing that's coming out of like the UAE or Saudi Arabia, where they're talking about like an all-in-one government app that handles like taxes, parking tickets, things like that?
I have not, but it doesn't surprise me at all. This is another control grid thing, as Catherine Austin Fitz has been talking about.
Yeah, so Brad Smith is out of Racine. He's number 3 at Microsoft behind Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer. So he's like making all these decisions, and Brad Smith today just said that TAMM all-in-one government app would be perfect for the United States.
What a surprise. How about that?
Yeah.
I also saw a thing about Musk raising the price on Starlink to certain places. I saw Amazing Polly was putting something up about that. I don't nothing to do with this really, but it just made me think of, the control that they're trying to consolidate into one or two of these multi-billion-dollar corporations that get control of a market, like an app like that. That's going to give a company a whole lot of power over a whole lot of information and a whole lot of everything. Just like Starlink has been screwing with people that this is their only real chance to have high-speed internet right now, because, Verizon and the cable companies aren't necessarily digging as much new fiber cable. And Starlink, how much money has he gotten from the government to set up this massive network of satellites around the world that are like bumping into each other? Apparently there's so many of them up there.
I would say it's closer to $1 trillion now than $1 billion.
Right. But yeah, so Flynn was also involved in the Pizzagate scandal, or was he calling it out? How I saw you were doing dives with him, and it touched on Pizzagate and Bannon and Blackwater and Wellness Company and all these different connections. Lindell.
Oh, right? Yeah. So if you want, I can share my screen.
Yeah, sure. Okay. And that's the whole network. And then you see us. All right. So there's the Flynn network.
All right. So we have Michael Flynn, DIA, NSA, all kinds of crazy connections, but he's tied to this thing called America's Future, which people can go look at. His sister's a part of it. His brother Charles is a part of it. Kirk Cameron is a part of it. Jack Posobiec,
what's
Josh
with
Hammer.
Kirk? I've seen Kirk Cameron in the last couple of years. It's the strangest thing. He's like, I remember from Growing Pains, but then he started like a religious thing with his wife, and that was the last I heard of Kirk Cameron. Like he was building like some kind of a mega church. So,
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Interesting. And that's, so is that just like an influencer network that he's America's Future? That's, what is that, a PAC?
Essentially, I think that it's being used for money laundering. If I'm being completely honest, I don't have any proof of that. But essentially, it's like a collection of them that all kind of say the same things, and they champion the same ideals. It's skews very heavy religious, especially like Catholic. And I think it has to do with like the Flynn's associations with some darker things. There's like the 7 rays of light and different things like that. Michael Flynn has associations with Paul Vallely, who has worked directly with known Satanist and Temple of Set founder Michael Aquino. Michael Aquino used to go to the Church of Satan under Anton LaVey, and Paul Vallely and Michael Aquino wrote a book together called From Psyops to Mind Wars or something like that. That basically goes over like how to socially engineer people and how to get them to buy into like certain psyops and things. And Paul Vallely is a huge Flynn person. He was part of the Pizzagate stuff, the Save the Children stuff. And essentially it's like all of these people, you have people like Laura Logan and Liz Crokin, Mike Smith, that are all involved with the Pizzagate stuff, that are all wrapped up with the America's Future. And that's where that whole narrative came from. Like the deep state is, just the left, and it's a bunch of pedophiles, and they're, doing all these shady things and like drinking the blood of children, which could very well still be the case. I'm not saying that that's not, but I think that it's sort of this like controlled narrative to get people to only look at a piece of the puzzle or a piece of the picture. And that they're even weaponizing it in like a modern day form of McCarthyism.
And then what about like, so I saw the Heritage Foundation down there, down toward the bottom.
Oh yeah. So the Heritage Foundation, that was actually founded in Racine, which we were just talking about a little while ago. But that's Joseph Coors and Edwin Fuellner. But Mike Flynn is tied up with that. He has his own thing called the Flynn Intel Group, which is Behan Keon. It shortens to FIG, Flynn Intel Group Aviation and Cyber. That's where you get this guy named Tim Newberry, who's part of like the White Canvas Group, which you can go look up. It's sort of like an Intel tech company, Black Horse Solutions, 1011 Ventures. And then this VizSense company that he's a part of apparently got money for it through this company called Colt Ventures that got money directly from Donald Trump, which I think is absolutely crazy.
Wow.
I can't remember what it was for, but essentially they were paying for, I can't remember if it was election information or campaign information or what it was, but goes into like the whole Russia stolen election thing. And man, there's all kinds of stuff here. IP3 International, a lot of people don't know this, but Donald Trump tried to sell nuclear energy in his first term to places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar, and Jared Kushner, Mike Flynn, Derek Harvey, David Petraeus, they were all really big in that. Scott Jarnigan, he's over Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. Robert McFarlane was a big part of that as well. He's like former CIA director, United States Energy Council, and it's honestly kind of crazy. It gets into like Microsoft comes back into play and things like that. You have the American Enterprise Institute, James O'Keefe and his whole thing through like Brian Gamble and Eric Prince, the Trevor Fitzgibbon stuff where now, Trevor Fitzgibbon is
back up on the O'Keefe thing. Is that like from Veritas, or is that like this new OMG venture and having him like removed from Veritas? I'm wondering what the timeline is there.
Yeah, so Eric Prince basically helped to train O'Keefe, and while he was with Veritas, and then O'Keefe kind of got like the Tucker Carlson at Fox treatment with Veritas, and they started O'Keefe Media Group, and Brian Gamble is directly a part of that.
Yeah, they busted him. I remember this. They busted him for causing like a couple of these fraudulent sting things where it turns out he paid the people $10,000 or whatever it was in order to craft a narrative so that they were filmed saying XYZ, but that wasn't necessarily the case. And that they caught him once or twice doing that. And then there was the whole thing with the Pfizer guy. I still don't know if that was real or not. Did that guy work for Pfizer? I don't know.
It's hard to say. Especially just like the pattern that I'm realizing with like all of these things as I'm looking into them, like each main narrative thing has so many moving parts and so many people attached to it that it's hard to believe that any of it is real.
I mean, so O'Keefe came out this week and said that he had stuff about Epstein and that they were targeting him. And then all of a sudden he shows up at a party wearing a bulletproof vest that he's hosting, like, for OMG. Yeah. That's not what you do if you think people are trying to kill you. Like, it's just, the whole thing feels like just a massive distraction op and designed to lead people down rabbit holes that don't necessarily exist, with some truth mixed in, but a lot of, again, it's how the intel agencies obviously work. I mean, we read about this over and over and over again. They mix truth in so that you can't say it's an absolute lie and it's total bullshit, but at the same time, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. You know, they mix in lies with the truth so that you can't really tell. You know, that's the idea. They don't want you to be able to tell.
So from what I've kind of started to put together, it's that you have big tech that is constantly spying on all of us, aggregating our opinions and thoughts on things. You have intelligence agencies that understand where they want to go, what the agenda is and how to direct it. And then you have PR guys and marketing big wigs that basically get the two to connect with each other. They understand things like psychology and how to manipulate people into believing certain things, or things like that, spinning narratives. And I think all three of those things sort of work together to see how well each psyop is doing and how to sort of steer the ship day to day.
And I think that Intel has infiltrated both tech and marketing also to, number one, push their own narratives through, but also to provide intel back to the agency so that they can put together more of a complete picture of what's happening. Now,
absolutely.
Flynn was national security advisor, is that right? To Trump initially? Yeah. One of the shortest tenures of the Trump administration.
43 days or something.
One of the short. Well, Scaramucci beat him. Scaramucci was 11 days. But he was out of there quick. And there were questions over how and why he got nominated in the first place, or even selected. There was Obama saying this guy's a problem. And I don't know, maybe that's why he picked him. It's because Obama said he was a problem. It's fascinating, man, to see how this all lays out. And if back out the web, I just want people to see kind of what this looks like when you're done with a full research thing. So what he will do, if you watch any of the streams, Jesus Christ, is he goes down rabbit holes and will look at a website and say, okay, who's connected to these people and what do they do? And that leads down a rabbit hole of, all these people are on this board here. Oh, that's interesting. This person's also on this, and this person's involved with this. And that's how all of these things kind of intersect and connect and wrap around each other. All right, you've got Eric Prince with the DeVos family, because that's his family, and Blackwater / Constellus Group now, I guess it's called, because they have to keep changing names every couple of years for the mercenary groups, because otherwise they get sued.
Yep.
Man, it is an enormous web with ridiculous money behind it to push what is the agenda. So that's what I kind of wanted to ask you and have you here for is, okay, so we have this massive web. What does it all mean? What does it all mean?
Well, I think it means that it illustrates to people just how involved the same few people are. Like, I think that when you break down and show just how tied to so many different things, whether it's nuclear energy or, this child trafficking psyop or influencers on the web, like when you can see that all these different things are all actually just rolling up to the same few people who have been in the, the mainstream zeitgeist for years and years, and show that, they are sort of involved with all these different narratives that people subscribe to. It hopefully really drives home the point that everything that is happening around us involves all these same people that want to slowly usher us towards this global technocratic one world government agenda. And I think that what's happening here is they will basically start a story or a narrative. They will have one person on one side, carve out the talking points and things like that on one camp. And then they'll also have people on the other side carving out the talking points and things like that. And what's left in the middle that remains is the common sense, pro-human, anti-authoritarian mindset. But because all the other talking points have been stripped away, now we have this dividing line. And then they, as Lenin said, the best way to control the opposition is to lead it ourselves.
Right.
So I think that's what's happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you have, and credit to Polly who called this out a while ago, that narrative normal network, that new narrative network, where they basically have infighting and they go as guests on each other's shows, and they have their roles. And my question is this happening on quote unquote another side too? Is there another narrative normal network being assembled? Maybe I need to kind of pull together who all the people I think that might be involved with that. But they're certainly providing, there is a separate organization that seems to be providing another version of a narrative and another version of reality that might be coming. Now, they don't necessarily have as much moneyed interests, or at least Western moneyed interests. I think it might be coming from Global South, China, Russia, etc., potentially, and involving people that are friendly to those countries, which are countering similar type of narratives and networks that we're building, that we see building here.
One that I think is important to kind of keep an eye on, and this is just like my theory, but the Barry Weiss Sink Uyghur rebellion pack that they have going on the left, I think with people like RFK, Tulsi Gabbard, and those two, that what you're going to slowly start to see is common sense reformed Democrats that are not subscribe to like super leftist ideals, but are also not Republican. And I think they're going to basically just have another essentially centrist party running the left that, you know, is like, you know, we shouldn't have mandates, the trans ideology stuff, the the climate change stuff. And I think we're going to slowly start seeing that be built up towards 2028. Corporatist,
centrist. Again, I can't stand Cenk Uygur, man. I used to be a massive TYT fan, and again, I feel like that guy, I got fooled for a while, and then you couldn't help but see it. He's a sheep herder for the Democratic Party. He's insistent. He's seen kind of like the squad lane, like he's insisting on becoming a party that wants nothing to do with him, has continually spit in his face, yet he's going to take it over and run the whole thing from his own ideology that they want nothing to do with. They are straight corporatists, capitalist corporatists. Barry Weiss is awful too. And not only that, but they're Zionists. Now, Cenk is not necessarily a Zionist, but he's okay with Zionists. He seems to be, and he seems to be okay taking their money too. Barry Weiss is a rabid, raging Zionist, and the Free Press has a valuation at this point. It had one in the fall of over $100 million, hosted on Substack. You know, I did a little bit of research into that, and it's got the regular Silicon Valley backers, the Y Combinators, and the Andreessens, and she only sold off like, I think 15% of the company, but they have a massive staff, and they're profitable and they're doing well on Substack as a platform, to the point where Substack decided to create an enterprise division to handle more publications rather than individuals. So now you're seeing like the New Yorker magazine is now moving over to Substack and setting up a publication there to mirror their magazine. And
that's insane.
The Bulwark is another one that they point to quite heavily, that has a ton of liberal, you know, and again, I wouldn't even call, these people are not the left. They're trying to define that they are the left. They are all center right to right wing. And then you have, you know, where Trump is, which is further to that right. I think, you know, it's funny, a buddy of mine who is not political at all calls me up, and he watches Cenk Uygur once in a while. I like what this guy says. Lives in California, and he's a conservative, but independent, leaning conservative. And I like what this guy's been saying to this dude. Don't get fooled. I got sucked in for a while, and he's a problem because he'll say all the right things, and he's like, look, man, I just want to be entertained. And he bloviates, and I said, the reason why he hates Donald Trump so much is because he's his shadow. He sees himself in a mirror, and everything that bothers him about himself is what he keeps screaming about with Donald Trump. You know, liar, fraud, clown show, carnival barker. Only Trump is better at it in every way, shape, and form than Cenk Uygur is. Although Cenk has managed to stay around in the independent, quote unquote, independent space, funded by corporations quite heavily, even though he would claim he wasn't. So Rebellion PAC, let me give you a little bit of background. Back in 2016, he decided to start something called Wolf PAC. I don't know if you've looked into this at all. So Wolf PAC was designed to get a constitutional amendment to overturn Citizens United. Okay. And he built up, different divisions in different states. Initially comes to a lot of hype, and then it tends to kind of fall off, and then he's nowhere to be found. But there are still people that have this idea. He just kind of loses interest after a little bit. And that's what I see this. So using it to get hype, using it to get some funding and to get some recognition, notoriety, and then moving on.
Yeah. So do you think that that's intentional? Like, do you think what's happening is he's coming in, he's seeing a movement that's starting to gain traction. He'll come in, siphon all the money, the energy, the attention, and the time, and then move on to the next one.
Well, yes. And what's even funnier is that then he started Justice Democrats, to be able to put in common sense Democrats like AOC and Cori Bush and Jamal Bowman, that either AIPAC is going to outspend them to the point that they're not going to even make it through their primary, right? They failed miserably, and they weren't Justice Democrats. They were just Democrats, and that was a massive project. Yeah. It feels like this is that 2.0 version of that, where, and initially, Justice Democrats was half of a coin. There was another side of that coin called Brand New Congress, right, that was going to recruit independent, corporate-free Republicans to challenge incumbents. Problem was they couldn't find one. They couldn't find one that wasn't going to get in line with the corporate agenda and get funded by corporations and really challenge the system the way it needed to. And 538, which was Brand New Congress, ended up having, not 538, but Brand New 535. 538 was Nate Silver's word. Brand New 535, which was Brand New Congress, ended up having to either fold. First, it then had to declare that it was aligned with the Democratic Party because you couldn't show that you were trying to recruit both sides. That would have been a problem. Like, it was like, they had to decide, pick one party or the other, or go completely nonpartisan. It was really interesting. And all of them ended up, the Justice Democrats still exists, but I don't know what it is at this point. But he was a and they threw out Cenk early on. I remember they cooked up some kind of a scandal involving something that he had written 20 years before for a blog. And the New York Times ran with it and smeared him. And the other people in Justice Democrats were like, we don't want to be affiliated with this guy anymore. And so they walked away from him. He still was a champion for that organization. And I think it was almost like, kind of like what you're seeing with Netanyahu and Trump right now. Maybe they'll even never talk again, but they'll still work together behind the scenes. They still have the same common agenda, even if they don't necessarily like each other and don't want to put it publicly that this is what's happening. It works better for the narrative that they're at odds. Yeah. That's what I see happening. And I see eventually a split from Barry Weiss, because Barry Weiss is a genocidal lunatic who's ultra conservative. All right. Other than the fact that she's a lesbian, that's the only thing that's not conservative about her. Eventually, she's going to butt heads with him over something, and we'll see some kind of a split there. And that will be the way that they can kind of break up that grift that was going for a while in sucking up air and sucking up cash and, making, sucking up narrative. That's how many people talking about this for X amount of months, and then all of a sudden 6 months later it's gone. What do we know that as? That's a psyop. Narratives that people
still waiting on those
about.
Epstein files,
right? So you've done a deep dive on Flynn. Yesterday, I saw you did one on Peterson and that ARC network. So
yeah. So it was sort of pitched to me. ARC was pitched to me as like the alt-right version of the WEF, and it's like a little sister kind of, and it's still growing and things like that. But I decided to dig into it and all the people that are involved with that last night.
Okay. Tell me about that. Like I popped in for a few minutes early on, and then I had to go do family stuff, so I didn't catch where it went with it and what you ended up finding from doing all those dives. I saw you had a crazy web of stuff to show. Let me Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. That's what ARC stands for. Okay.
Yeah. And so essentially what Jordan Peterson did was he got funding from this thing called the Legatum Foundation that's run by this guy named Christopher Chandler, who I saw. If you don't see any other ties coming off of somebody, it's because I haven't gotten into digging into them yet. And just because of the amount of ties and stuff that I had yesterday, I obviously ran out of time. But so I got a few people on the web, but we're going to be digging into the rest of them. But Christopher Chandler through this Legatum Foundation and then Paul Marshall are the two main stockholders for ARC. And then obviously you have Jordan Peterson, who I still have to dig into him too. You know, you have like the Daily Wire and different things like that. But
Yahoo ties,
it's essentially
Israel stuff, sure.
Yeah, and it's essentially a coalition of people that are like talking heads, and like think tank people and different things like that. But all these different people that are attached, I'm going to be digging into like everything they're tied to. And it's, you know, people like Dan Crenshaw. You have Mike Johnson is a part of this network right here. You have, you know, let's see, Maurice Glassman.
Yeah, and tied
you
to
have
the
Tony
a lot
Abbott.
of it tied to the Catholic Church. It looks like Christianity and a very Christian type of movement. No.
Yeah. There's what's her name? Philippa Stroud. Her husband David runs Christ Church London, which I guess is a church big enough to have its own Wikipedia page. So
interesting.
You know, that, yeah. But very, very Christian centric, Christian values seem to influence most of the people that are a part of this. You have Warren Farrell. You have this guy named Niall Ferguson, who went to Jesus College, like all these different colleges. I think he went to Rutgers and Harvard. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to be doing a show with what's his name, Nigel Farage. No, someone else is doing the show with Nigel Farage. Yeah, it's Maurice Glassman. They're going to be doing a show together where he argues for the left, and then Nigel Farage argues for the right, and just waste people's time.
The billionaire class.
Yeah. You have, you have Arthur C. Brooks is another person that's a part of the ARC network. He is over American Enterprise Institute, or he was, and American Enterprise Institute was the firm that Sally Sadel used during the opioid crisis to run like PR for Purdue and things like that. She was publishing all of her work through AEI, and JD Vance actually used to work there, and he did some like op-eds for them and things like that. And then when he became governor of Ohio, he said he promised to start this project that he was inspired by his mom's struggle with opioids, according to him, the whole hillbilly elegy thing.
Right.
He said, we're going to start this project to fight opioid addiction in the state of Ohio. And then he picks Sally Sadel, of all people, having known her role in the opioid crisis and all, having worked at AEI, knowing who she was. And they basically ran the study. Nothing ever came of it. No new legislation. And he paid her thousands and thousands of dollars, and then they just shut it down and never said anything.
Oh, that's not shady or anything. Sure. Oh,
Yeah.
I see
Yeah.
Brock Pearson, the Milken Institute on the left. And so that's where you get a little bit of a link, I'm guessing, into number one, crypto and that whole thing, a link into also Israel ties. He's got a lot of ties to Israel. And I'm wondering if a lot of this network that you see, a lot of these people are also end times Christians, which is why you would see a lot of them being, pro-Israel.
It would make a lot of sense to me, just based on like everything that I've seen from, things like studying the Kabbalah and the Messianic prophecy and things like that. And I do think that there is a large overlap. I think Jordan Peterson, especially being over this and the deep Christian ties, I think that there is a narrative to sort of push public perception that we are in the end times, so that when they manufacture the apocalypse that they're going to use to reset the world and do the one world government and things like that, that it's going to basically get all the Christians on board.
Yeah, and these are the people that are like convinced that the Jews are going to have to convert or burn in hell.
Yeah.
It's just the other side, honestly. Of it's the Christian Zionism side. It's freaky.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like all these people are pro-Israel. All these people, like you have Vivek Ramaswamy as part of this ARC network, which is crazy because I'm pretty sure he's not a Christian. I think he's Hindu, isn't he?
Maybe.
But he's tied up with all of this. You have people like Peter Thiel. Are associated with like Joe Lonsdale.
Yep.
Joe Lonsdale isn't necessarily directly tied to the ARC network, but people like Barry Weiss and Arthur C. Brooks, who are also part of the University of Austin, which is where, Barry Weiss comes back in. You have Pano Canelos, you have Larry Summers, and different people like that. And then, obviously Joe Lonsdale and his connections to like Palantir,
sure. Thiel,
yeah. So one thing I found that was crazy.
Schellenberger.
Yeah. So Joe Lonsdale, he had this VC called Formation 8 that he used to fund this company called Oscar Health that is run by Jared Kushner's brother, Josh Kushner.
Sure. Oscar they're on the Obamacare exchanges.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was also funded by this Khosla Ventures, by this Vinod Khosla guy who's tied to Kleiner Perkins. And just all these other things like Horizon Ventures is another one. Horizon Ventures is Li Ka-shing, the Chinese billionaire. And he is tied up with Blockstream because he funds it through this this company, and Adam Back, the guy that's in charge of Blockstream, is the one that claimed to have gotten the Satoshi Nakamoto email about Bitcoin.
Oh, sure. So they're all like Intel connected, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So the three guys that were behind the Satoshi email story were this Adam Back guy who's tied up with China and the billionaires and the technocrats. And then you had Hal Finney, who was a transhumanist. Yeah. And part of like the Alcor life extension. And then you had Nick Szabo, who is also self-proclaimed extropian, self-proclaimed transhumanist. And I think that there's something there that people haven't looked deeper into. And it's starting to make me think that all of the Bitcoin and the Satoshi Nakamoto thing was just all a psyop.
It's all a big op. Yep. Cryogenically frozen guy, can't answer any questions conveniently. Lots of questions. When
the stock tanks, there's nobody that's in trouble or accountable for it. There's no government or company or person. It's just the will of the market.
Unbelievable. It's crazy shit. So your research the other day uncovered something called M2NS, and you actually published an article about it. I wanted to bring that up for M2NS.
Nice.
All right. So we got a talent agency here that you've uncovered that is pimping out high profile talent, right? Do they really have connections to these people? Can you really book them? I don't know. This guy Sharon El Cabos.
Alcabus, yeah. So that's actually something that I was going to test after we recorded this, because I started thinking, and I'm like, there's no way that they can possibly get people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump Jr. and Peter Thiel and Alex Jones and things like that. And they're all on this website. They're claiming that you can, sign up with them as a talent or book through them. And all of the most prominent contacts that I've thought to look up, like, Peter Thiel, Alex Jones, Elon Musk, Donald Trump Jr., Bill Clinton is on there.
Right.
And they all have pages. Yeah. Like you can even click on one of the links and it just goes directly to that talent page. And they're all that Sharon guy, that Sharon Akalbis guy. And I think today I'm going to call that number, pretend to be somebody that wants to book like Elon or Peter Thiel and say like, I want to book them for an interview and just see what happens. See like the questions, that they ask, or any sort of follow-up information that they have for me, what they tell me to do, and see, because I'm largely thinking that it is a scam, but I only have the information that they share with me to go off face value until I can determine for myself. But like, yeah, they claim to work with all these clients like Barclays and Coca-Cola, Amazon, and apparently they started as like, yeah. And apparently they started as like some sort of talent agency for DJs in the UK. And now have, according to them, like blown up into this global talent management company that does everything from, podcasters to politicians to pop artists and everything in between. So
and have you looked into this Sharon guy? Where'd he come from? How did
So that's what's interesting is like when I was doing this research, I was trying to find like various different records, and all I can find really are a bunch of like local puff pieces, or maybe not local, but like small time articles, puff pieces about him and growing this company into like this massive entity and things like that. And I've never heard of this until a couple of weeks ago. And I don't know anybody that's ever talked about it or mentioned it. I know there's things like Night Media that, have contracts with a lot of the streamers. And I'm wondering if this is like that, or if this is just one giant scam. And until I corroborate things, taking them at face value, it seems like this is where you can go to rent influence.
Yeah, Mentoos, MN2S, Mentoos, like mentors, Mentoos. Yeah. I'm trying to figure out like kind of what's that mod, what does that MN2S even stand for? What does that mean? What are they trying to represent? But yes, the other thing I might do is say that it's either some kind of I'm going to host some kind of an entrepreneur type of conference, and I'd like to book them because that would be a lane where all of them might potentially speak. All right, or you go for a specific one. Or a specific set. I'm looking for the Trump Jr., Elon Musk, Alex Jones set. Like that's a lane, right?
Yeah.
And it shows that's interesting. It shows, the size of their Instagram and Facebook, but not the size of their Twitter. Even the guy who owns Twitter doesn't show that he owns Twitter. Like that's pretty interesting. That there's also no price range at all for booking somebody like that also is a red flag at me, because I've definitely seen other talent agencies that book for high price profile celebrities list what the going rate is for that person. So
when you go to book someone on this, it's a form that you fill out like
like a Google form, literally. It's a Google form.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it could just be a scam to potentially recruit and bring in other content creators to scam them. Well, if they can get them promoted, maybe they'll promote me and they get paid by that potentially. It could also be one of these factories. And this is another thing I wanted to mention is I've actually been doing research into the opportunity, and I haven't done it. I'm not planning on it, but people who are buying likes, views, engagement, reposts, live stream viewers. And I've seen websites and things advertised for these type of models, which makes me question how much of any of what we're seeing is real. You know, I've had questions about specifically the Rumble channels and the amount of volume that people see on their Rumble streams as opposed to a YouTube live stream of the exact same number of people. I find that in general, the chat is not as engaged, and there might show 30 people, even though it may show 300 live. When you click on the show who's actually like live, show me their profiles. So either people aren't logged in, a lot of them aren't, which is possible, or somebody somewhere is buying some views somewhere. And I have not been able to ascertain any of that yet, but I have sneaking suspicions, and I need to go down those rabbit holes to be able to pull those threads and say, okay, it seems that these people that have 1,500 people watching, while it looks in line, it's artificial. It can't be real based upon the number of, especially based upon the number of engagements. And you look at the live chat during a stream when it's showing that many people are live and you see nothing. It's like, where is everyone?
Yeah.
So like you said, you looked into that. Go ahead. Hmm?
I was just going to say it actually reminds me because I think there's a huge glaring blind spot right now for federal election commission rules where campaigns have to disclose how much money they give to a social media company, but there's no itemized list to show what that's for. What posts are they promoting? Whose accounts are they paying? And things like that. You can't find that anywhere. And I think that that's a huge blind spot because, I mean, you know, people, in my opinion, people like Ian Carroll come to mind where, you know, you have Nicole Shanahan, who's a billionaire, who endorses very early on in the RFK thing. And then boom, all of a sudden he's got this meteoric rise over the last year or two. And I'm like, I mean, she has billions of dollars, you know, she could pay for promotions and things like that to boost whoever she wants.
Yeah. And we've certainly seen, there's been a lot of questions over that guy, like literally to the point today that he was wearing like a Kabbalah thing on his wrist or something when he's being interviewed by Candace Owens. And he's been on every major podcast so far, from Rogan to Jimmy Dore to now Candace. I don't know. Has he done a Tucker Carlson one yet?
Not that yet that I know of, but
that's
I'm
coming,
sure it's not far
I'm
off.
sure that's coming.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my question again is this guy, Sharon Elkabas, that you found, and you mentioned the intelligence cutout model, all right, and how intelligence agencies, and this could theoretically be an intel op, all right, this MN2S, that behind the feel-good PR, companies' data-rich operations raise questions. Their own promotional materials boast of sophisticated analysis tools. Right. That's more at home in military psyop circles. Right. So, and where is all this money coming from? You know, Bitcoin conferences, I think crypto conferences and entrepreneurial conferences are injecting a ton of cash right now into the marketplace.
Yeah. Well, in that section you were looking at, there's a quote by Elkabas where he says AI is already being used to produce digital doubles of celebrities, actors, and musicians in order for their likeness to be used in digital content. So I'm wondering if he's like AI deep faking people, and then
I'm wondering if he's an AI deep fake.
It's possible.
Like we talked about that other journalist that I don't want to necessarily talk about yet because I don't have evidence, but I have my suspicions that there is a pretty influential large guy on the right that seems to be AI driven, that has never really appeared anywhere publicly, but there's a lot of suspicion that it seems to be a lot of the content that they're publishing is AI, and it only exists on one platform. They've done some interviews that seemingly agree with the host on every issue, which is a little strange. But they're being presented as an expert on certain things. Like, is it possible? I think it's definitely. Oh, and the fact that his website quotes himself is shady as fuck. You're representing all these big people, and the person that you quote is you. It leads me to believe that he is a party of one here, who's trying to create an aura that he's representing these brands and these people. My guess is that if Coca-Cola learned that he was putting their logo on, he would get a cease and desist logo, because there are very specific guidelines as to who can present that on their website and how. And usually that has to be baked into some kind of a contract. You know, Coke's just not going to let you put their logo on. Even if you're doing their work for them, they don't necessarily want the world knowing that you're doing their work for them. And that has to be negotiated as part of your agreement with the customer in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and it's crazy too, because like this company has now, I think this year will have been around for 30 years.
Wow.
So it's like, it's not just some like overnight pop-up, and they have like a confirmed history of being like PR for certain talent. Now, obviously it's not like huge talents, you know, like Elon and things like that. But this guy named Fat Man Scoops, who I guess was a artist from, you know, the mid 2000s. He died while they were his PR firm and like spoke on his behalf and things like that.
Shady.
Yeah.
What about,
and then it just
the link to Seth Rich
of like the, so none of this is tied to the Seth Rich stuff, but to me, this seems a lot like the same things that I see from like David Fenton and Michael Schellenberger and Trevor Fitzgibbon, where, you know, they're basically PR guys for all these influential people. And, you know, they all have their ties to like Soros and the CIA and intelligence agencies and stuff like that. So I sort of saw a lot of the patterns that I've found from investigating those three to kind of be the same here, where it's like there's not a lot of publicly available information on them. You know, a lot of the pieces on them seem to be like manufactured or constructed to present a certain appearance. And outside of that, you really can't find a lot about the Sharon guy.
That's another red flag, you know? Something that sets off alarm bells to say, okay, who is this person? Why? Skittles and Nordstrom, I mean, big brands, allegedly, a few of our clients. And again, they could have a legitimate side of the house and then a not so legitimate side of the house. We've seen some of that happening as well, where they'll use the ad agency, the PR firm, as a mask to potentially recruit and scam people on the other side. And the problem is they get embarrassed to the point where they don't want to publicly come out and admit that they got scammed. So they just walk away, they slink away, and nobody ever knows what happened.
Yeah. And I mean, these are like the biggest companies on the planet, like Nike, Amazon, Spotify, Samsung, like that, you know,
Rolex,
rinky dink. Yeah. Like you would think they'd have vested interest in shutting something like this down.
You would think. But yet they're representing that they can book all of these talent people or all these speakers.
That
is fascinating. So yeah, here's like the Alex Jones page for them on their talent roster. Hilarious. And here's their similar talent. And they're offering people like across different industries. So you've got actors, and you've got soccer, athletes, and you've got personalities. Oh, here you go. Will he do a virtual appearance? So now how do I book him for a virtual thing, like a Zoom call for my conference? Oh, here you go. How much does it cost to book? Okay. Depending on a number of factors. Yeah. We'll basically look into you and figure out how much money you have. And that's what we'll look at to figure out how much we can extract from you.
Exactly.
Very shady shit. Really weird. For talent. So now, this is like if you are an influencer, this is how they're recruiting to you with PR services and brand partnerships effectively. Again, here, brand partnerships. That's where they're going to show you who their partners are thing. What we do for brands, what we do for talent. So long-term branding strategies. And we've seen people using Suits, right? This cat, pretty sure. He was in the show Suits. He was Mike Ross.
And it says that he's partnering with their game company.
With Dream Games for a campaign surrounding the Royal Match mobile game. I guess because people recognize him from Suits. That's their branding success story. So there might be some kind of legitimate portion to it. Look, we know that everything involved, first of all, that was 2 years ago. So we always look at dates. We try to figure out how old is this stuff? When was it published? Right. But what have they been up to for the last 2 years? I don't know. Like there's a lot of weird questions to be asked. Head of partnerships from Focus Films. That's a smaller division of one of the big studios. I don't remember which one it is. It's like Universal or Sony or one of those Focus features. Oh, there you go. May 1st. Boston Rob partners with Degree for a Cool Rush campaign. So they are doing, it looks like, some kind of advertising involving influencers, mostly TV personalities, but I'm guessing that probably crosses over to podcasters too. I don't know how much anybody's actually heard of these people, but I certainly would have questions about this agency and seeing who they were able to get their hands on booking for you. Chevy Chase. Now, I don't know if this is necessarily even them. Now, they claim that it's a celebrity branding success story. Was it their success?
Right.
Or was it just they're writing an article about how a celebrity linked up with Raekwon and DoorDash? Is DoorDash their customer? I don't seem to think so, but maybe. Oh, DoorDash by M2NS. See, in this MN2S. Interesting.
Yeah. So I'm almost wondering, because, and this is just a theory, but they could be aggregated, like scraping sponsored posts and then having AI generated descriptions, right? Like articles for those, and then like stolen valor, basically, of being like, look, we made another brand connection or something.
Right? Because, this is so strange. So DoorDash, who is this website? VCU Brand Center. With only 7,100 subscribers, like, wouldn't you think this Super Bowl commercial would have been put out somewhere else on a more legitimate platform than this VCU Brand Center? This whole thing just screams red flags at me. Then they have an FAQ section, which is always interesting to go down. You know, what happened? And I would definitely start investigating all of that. Can I get a comedian's contact number? What?
Do you see the one under FAQs?
Is it a legit talent agency? No. No, it's going to say no. Wow, somebody actually paid to build this website. You know, this is just, and if I like to look at the source code quite often. You'll be able to tell like what program they're using. Like, is it WordPress to host this thing or what it is? Wow, this is really weird. They're using something called Viewport, which is really interesting. But I don't see here. Oh, okay. The rest of the source code's to the right. So one thing it tells me is their web designer sucks because it's literally all on one line of code.
Yeah.
Look at this. Their whole website is one line of code. Come on.
That's crazy.
And ENGB, meaning that it's British English. It's not even US English. Interesting.
Oh, wow. Well, they did start in the UK.
That is interesting. And so I start to look at Perception-Sharp 52. Whoa. Okay. I always just try to go down. You know, you can find a lot of things in source code on websites and where they're linking to and how they're finding certain things and where certain files are located. It looks like this is a self-hosted. Oh, WP includes. That means it's likely a WordPress.
Okay.
Built website, which just tells me that it's built on one of the more popular platforms that there is, but it's not. You wouldn't expect an ad agency or a talent agency to use one of those platforms. You would expect them to have developers that would build their own in-house type of websites.
Especially if they're claiming to be working. Yeah, if they're claiming to be working with these big names, you would think that they would have their own platform.
And, you know, WordPress is also quite hackable. So would these people want a website representing them that was potentially vulnerable? Because I had a guy basically tell me that the plugins for WordPress are basically Israeli spyware havens.
I wouldn't doubt it.
You know? So this is a really interesting article for people to check out about M2 and MN2S and follow down those rabbit holes. I know that you had also published another article recently. It was the first one about Milken, Michael Milken, and Musk and that whole thing. So talk about that and what led you to want to write about this.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Milken Global Conference has been on my radar for about a year now, because when I was looking into like technocracy in the Trump administration, Michael Milken came up because Trump had actually pardoned him during his first term.
Right.
And Michael Milken is wrapped up with that Drexel Burnham Lambert stuff. But he holds this thing called the Milken Global Conference where, you know, I think it was 2019, Anthony Fauci gave a speech talking about like a pandemic or a virus, and then we had COVID. And now we have Elon coming out and saying that, you know, AI is basically going to replace most of government, most of people. And he did it at this conference with Michael Milken.
Oh boy.
Sitting right next to him. Yeah. Now Michael Milken is from the Drexel Burnham Lambert stuff, which was the junk bond crisis
in the 80s.
You know, some people, I was going to say some people, myself included, weren't around for it, but it was very, very bad. It was a ton of like fraud and corruption going on. Michael Milken was considered the junk bond king. That is other people calling him that, not me.
He went to prison.
Essentially, he went to prison and pled guilty, and then Trump pardoned him and got his, I think he got his license reinstated and things like that. I could be wrong on that, but I do think he's like just able to do business again. Essentially, you know, with technocracy and looking into like the original technocracy movement, people like Thorstein Veblen, who were talking about basically coupping the government and creating a Soviet of technicians. They were claiming, well, if we get all of our people in here and we install, you know, these systems and these certain things that only engineers are familiar with, then we can essentially convince the government to give us control of the United States. And that's what I kind of see happening here, where, you know, Elon's Doge is coming in and cutting all of these things and streamlining all this stuff, claiming to be getting rid of the bureaucrats, but really what they're doing is they're getting rid of the people that could potentially resist them, the people that could have moral hangups, the people that could leak information or whistleblow on things. All those people have to go. and they want a cold calculating machine that they type in a command, it does the thing. No leaks, no whistleblowers, no resistance or opposition. And he was talking about that. And with Michael Milken and his influence over Trump, enough to at least get pardoned, which I think is extremely significant. Just the repeated patterns of Fauci talking, and then we get COVID, and Brock Pierce talked, and now there's the crypto boom, and now we have Elon talking about the AI replacement of people, and I think that's what we're going to see in the next couple of years, honestly.
I'm already seeing it. I have a friend who he was a senior VP of sales, but he's now created something basically like a digital sales twin. And it scares the crap out of me because, he's selling the presentation is, think about if you could have your subject matter expert next to you at all times that could answer anything, that has a dump of everybody that works at your company that doesn't get sick and is always going to show up on time for your meeting. And it sounds great, except that it leads to replacing you in the end. I mean, they think that it won't be used to do that. But again, I believe that there are already virtual podcast hosts. I am not one. I'm a real human being. But I genuinely believe that right now there are at least a couple of people out there in the world that are completely not real, that we've been fooled into believing that are. And eventually they're going to pull that Band-Aid off and be like, yeah, as it turns out, this one hasn't been a real person, but you've been believing what they've said, and they you're a fan, and there's no reason to not believe it because you've been presented with the illusion that it's genuine and that it's actually happening in somebody's house or in a studio using a tool and this, when the whole thing is just being driven by AI. I don't think that we're that far off from it if we're already there. Looking at what all these robots are doing, and everybody always, I see on Facebook, it's the robots were supposed to do the manual labor and the people were supposed to have more time to have leisure, and it's just doing the opposite, it seems. The robots are doing the thinking and the people are doing the grunt work.
Yeah, it's if you go to that Substack article again, there's a magazine cover down here that says 30 million out of work in 1933 or 20,000 a year income for every family, and that's basically like, hey, you're not going to have a job and we're going to give everybody universal basic income, and that's the way it's going to be. And the fact that this was almost 100 years ago that this was printed, and we're seeing the exact same thing now, and nobody's putting the pieces together. It's like, man, we're gonna have I think a job crisis in 2030. And
again, it's what was the movie where they talked about, like, man marveled at AI? Was the Matrix. There's a scene literally where Morpheus is saying in the beginning of the 21st century, he lays the whole thing out, right? Man marveled at AI, but what they realized eventually was that the AI was smarter than humans, and they thought that humans were actually the problem, so they turned on us. And is that really out of the realm of possibility? No. Especially when you see the way that the AIs have already been programmed, and when they're asked about what's happening in Gaza right now, what would they do to Israel if they objectively were trying to create peace in the world? I don't think that Israel wants to hear that, or the people that program these AI programs that are Israel friendly would want to hear that. But
that's the other thing. That's the other thing too, is a lot of people don't understand that big tech is essentially the military industrial complex and the intelligence industry merged together, and they use the tech industry to sort of push their own projects and things like that through the public sector, because if it was coming from the government, nobody would trust it. And I think that essentially what we have is like a revelation of the method, but also like manufacturing the consent. Sometimes I worry about like me saying all of these things and like, pointing these things out and reporting on these things. Cause I'm like, well, is that what I'm doing? Like I may mean well, but is me pointing this stuff out just actually doing what they want, like normalizing this stuff to people?
Pushing this stuff out so that it gets out into the world. But in a way, but how are people going to know what's happening otherwise until it's too late? And that's the only question that I have with all of that. I mean, yeah, so you go into, the Drexler Burnham scandal, but, you mentioned, how government pushes it out through private entity. Facebook, Palantir are two of the larger examples of they were intelligence, DARPA programs, NSA spy programs, CIA programs that the government decided would do better without government oversight. But they can be government contractors and not have that level of oversight.
Yeah. And to your point too, like the whole, will the machines grow to hate us? Like, a lot of these AIs are being built by military industrial people like Peter Thiel. Palantir's AI, the same one that's willing to create like automated kill lists on Israel's behalf through Project Lavender, is also the same AI that is getting injected into the IRS and ICE and the police force and everything like health. Pray.com, the Christian prayer website app thing. They're partnered with Palantir.
Palantir has, and I'll tell you, their stock has gone berserk. And we've reported on how Marjorie Taylor Greene did some insider trading or whatever. She started buying the stock this year, which she claims she doesn't know. She's up ridiculous money already. Even when Trump crashed the market in the early last month, Palantir stock was down to, I think, $85 a share or so. It's back up to $129 as it closed yesterday. I looked at it for the first time in a while. I was like, holy crap. What? I mean, I guess the fact that they've been getting all of these contracts and they're in favor with the current government, but I haven't seen necessarily GSA announcing new contracts. I don't know if they've changed the way that they are presenting or releasing that information now that they've kind of put a level of Doge or whatever you want to call it, a layer of a firewall over stuff. So are we even able to see this and who's getting contracts now for what? I remember famously that there was the military contract for 300, tanks or whatever it was. It was originally Tesla Cybertrucks. And then that got pushed back. So they then took the word Tesla off of it. But it was still in order for 800 billion for 300 or whatever, the same number for 300,000 or however many tanks or whatever the number was. I don't remember the specific thing that it was, but it definitely involved Musk and had a ridiculous, I think it was 400, outfitted Cybertrucks for the military or something. When they can't even like drive those things at night or in the snow because the way the headlights are set up, it covers the headlights with snow. And it's like, these things are not practical. Allegedly, Tesla Cybertruck sales are way off. And now what they're doing is they're now marketing them to like small businesses for work trucks and stuff because it has an exemption and it's got all kinds of potential benefits, but it's not a practical vehicle for most people.
Yeah. I think the Cybertruck is garbage.
Yeah. Dumpster on wheels is what is what it looks like and what my kids even call it. It looks like a dumpster on wheels.
I just sent you a post that I made about this budget reconciliation bill that kind of goes to your point about like the contracts and where the money's going and the Doge layer. Yesterday or the day before, I think, Congressman Brett Guthrie, chairman of the House Committee on Energy and Commerce, announced a full committee markup of the committee's budget reconciliation text.
Okay.
And essentially what this is doing is it's carving out $500 million to be basically set aside for the next 10 years to allow Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, to go in and basically allocate that money however he sees fit. He gets to choose every AI system that's getting installed in the government, and there is not going to be allowed any state level regulation or any sort of pushback or blocking with this budget bill. Essentially, it makes it to where only the federal government can regulate AI for the next 10 years. And Howard Lutnick gets to pick all the AI systems that are getting installed.
Specifically, Lutnick, not even like the Commerce Secretary, him by name.
No, it says the Commerce Secretary, but I mean he's
right now, right? Okay, appropriated to the Department of Commerce, $500 million until 2035. How convenient.
Yeah. And, you know,
I wonder if there'll be a Rumble affiliated AI that he puts in that money into. That's a nice way to keep Rumble going. Because, you know, he's an investor in Rumble. Tether put money into Rumble. Yep. He's into Tether. Huh. That's an interesting connection there. Wow. Yeah. Artificial intelligence and technology modernization. $500 million a year for 10 years. $5 billion.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it also talks about, it says in here that the Secretary of Commerce shall use the funds appropriated for the following: to replace or modernize within the Department of Commerce legacy business systems with state-of-the-art commercial intelligence agents or intelligence systems and automated decision systems.
Right.
Which to me rings back to like the United Healthcare stuff and how they were using AI to reject certain things.
Claims, sure.
Yeah.
They want to do the same thing they want to do the same thing for Medicaid, to be able to increase the denial on Medicaid claims, I'm guessing.
Exactly. And so now you have the Department of Commerce and this total government app, that TAMM thing that's coming out of Saudi Arabia. You have the Howard Lutnick, you have Brock Pierce, you have the Epstein connections, Tether, the crypto stuff, and it's all connected.
And it's all linked to Israel as well. Unit 8200.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a dirty web. And so this gets passed and it literally becomes illegal for any state to ban AI or to not go along with what the federal government is mandating with regard to AI.
Yeah, it says no state or political subdivision.
That's insane.
Shall enforce any law or regulation.
I thought, like, don't states have rights? Yeah, pretty hard for a states' rights kind of guy or gal to like this. Right.
Now, here's the problem. Here's the big issue is that, you know, a lot of these things are like a rebranding of like the old Koch Republicans. So you have things like Leonard Leo and Charles Koch and things that are still like very closely associated with a lot of these people, but it's through different organizations. Like the Federalist Society is a big one.
Yep, that's Leonard Leo also.
Exactly. Now, what people don't know is that we have like 5 or 6 of our Supreme Court justices right now are part of that Federalist Society.
Directly recommended. Amy Coney Barrett, you know, all 3 Trump appointees. And then Alito, I think, is part of that. And maybe even Roberts.
I believe so. Yeah. Let me, I had it pulled up on my arc. So we have Brett Kavanaugh, Neil Gorsuch, Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Amy Coney Barrett, and John Roberts. John Roberts denies that he has anything to do with him, but they say that he does. And that's weird. But I'd believe them before I believe him, because, you know, he's just lying to save his ass. But
well, and you remember some billionaire left Leonard Leo $1.6 billion to spend as he saw fit to get, you know, right-wing activist judges in there, and to impact the federal bench, which he's clearly been using.
Yeah. And so you have the Federalist Society with all of these Supreme Court justices, and then you have a guy named Eugene Kontrovich, who's also part of the Federalist Society, and he is part of the Kohelet Policy Forum, which is a think tank in Israel that works directly with the Knesset.
Yeah. Yeah, none of it's good.
And so, yeah. No.
And again,
no,
it's
not at all.
Regulating AI, it's passing anti-Semitism speech where they're going to use AI, of course, to monitor the transcripts of exactly what you're saying and monitor the profiles of people that they have concerns about. And you show up on a thing too many times, you're going to get a visit to your house. And if you keep showing up, then they may send you to CCOT or who knows where. Like, they're just, all the rules are out the door, man, and it scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
You know, seeing what they've been doing, rounding up these immigrants that they are claiming are, and again, they're using the guise of terrorism to round up protesters, to round up immigrants, to round up students, to round up activists, and impose. And once they throw that word around, it changes what they can do to you. And they realized a while back that once you're affiliated with that word, they can basically treat you as if you were already a convicted criminal. There is no more due process. It's guilty until proven innocent, effectively. And they don't really give you a chance to prove your own innocence.
Yeah, I mean, you had people like JD Vance that were saying, you know, we don't have time for due process because there's 20 million, you know, immigrants or whatever that we have to try. And it's like, okay, well, you're basically saying that we need to get rid of due process altogether and should be able to deport people before any investigating is done. And things, I mean, the guy that was coming out of Maryland, how he got deported before there was any sort of like formal investigation and things like that. And I mean, Trump even said, like, you know, next step is going to be the homegrowns, which to me seems like
all of us,
you know, whether like if it's not first generation or like American born first generation, it means American citizens.
100%. No, I think he has every intention, and they're talking about deporting Americans. Where are you going to deport them to? You're going to send them to a foreign country?
Salvador.
Well, that's not really deporting. That's imprisoning. That's a different story.
Yeah.
That's not making them have to live in another country freely. A deportation to me means we're just kicking you out here. We're not making sure that you have to go to prison somewhere else, but you're not allowed to be here anymore. But where do they send you? You don't have official citizenship and the right to live in any other country. Are they effectively treating you like a Palestinian at that point? You're a refugee without a passport or a country. Therefore, you're illegal being here and you're illegal effectively being everywhere as a refugee? I don't know what the answer to that is.
I kind of see it being somewhat similar to like the Patriot Act in Guantanamo, where it's like, you know, if we want to call you a terrorist, then we can basically waive all of your rights until we can determine that you are one. And who knows when your hearing is going to be, when your trial is going to be, if you even have one.
And we saw that
and I hate to get blackpilled there, but
I mean, we saw it. It's happening right now. It happened to Ramesia Ozturk, the Tufts University student, got thrown into a hole for 6 weeks. They tried to disappear her. They wouldn't let her talk to her lawyer. Same thing with Mahmoud Khalil. And he was negotiating between the students and the administration. He wasn't even part of the protest itself. He was trying to negotiate a peace, and they took him. He's still sitting in prison. It's been 3 months. He missed the birth of his own kid. And you never get that back. They don't care. There's no consequences for if they're wrong. And nobody's held accountable when they're wrong. Like the Kilmar Abrego Garcia, what did they end up doing? They ended up turning around and trying to spin it that he's the terrorist because of something that happened 4 years ago that he wasn't necessarily convicted of, that his wife has come out now in support of him. And then, it's been a whole mess. It really concerns me that, and a lot of this has got to do with criticism of Israel and uncovering of the ties between Israel, big business, and the control grid. It's like they don't want people to realize that this is coming out of Israel because they wouldn't accept it as much as if it was coming out of the United States, I guess. I don't necessarily understand it. I mean, it's part of it is that we send Israel a ton of money. It's like we're now giving them money to spy on us and to implement this grid so that, and it was Whitney Webb who very famously said, look, what they're doing on the with this digital surveillance and building a wall, they're not trying to keep everybody out. They're trying to keep us in.
Yeah.
You know, and now they're talking about building a 15-minute city out of Gaza. And someone's like, you know, I saw, and I like Mel, the village crazy lady on Twitter. And she's like, you know, look at what Gaza looks like now. 15-minute cities. I mean, what else are you going to do with it? Well, how did it get that way? You've got to let them rebuild it themselves. First of all, they're already they're destroying all the equipment that could possibly be used to rebuild it. They're killing everyone that might be able to. So, and I see her loudly condemning that. It's just, there's nothing that any of us seem to be able to do to stop it. And it's so frustrating to see. And then you have, you know, their sycophants that actually want it to happen. And then you got Jared that's actually selling waterfront property in Gaza. And it's just, we see where this is all going and what's going to happen to the people that oppose this and that aren't for this and want to live in a different kind of world. It's, if you don't want to go along, what are they going to do to us?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, it's tough to sort of try to imagine what it would be like, but I mean, we see how far they're willing to go just looking at Gaza. And, you know, just because we're American or we look a certain way or we act a certain way, have a certain culture, doesn't mean that we're not just as, you know, on the list, because it basically the only thing that qualifies you for that is, are you going to get in my way? And,
yeah, we thought we had rights, but George Carlin told us all about rights. They're not rights if someone can take them away. They're all just temporary privileges. And
exactly.
These monsters are deciding that, you know, the right to pursue happiness freely is now a privilege that they're not going to allow us to have because it is going to potentially either hurt their money or impact their plans for how they want to set the world up going forward so they can continue to profit massively from it. And again, who's stopping them? That's what scares me. The only real entity that could potentially stop them is China. If they get China on board, we're so screwed. If they get China, and they already kind of have them on board, they're making deals with them now. China has had this non-interventionist thing. At some point, they may turn around and say, look, what you're doing is morally reprehensible, and I don't want to do business with you anymore. And I think that is the answer. You know, BDS and hurting them in the wallet is the best way that we can potentially impact that system right now. Opting out as much as you can, educating others about how they can do it, and about just how linked everything is and how it all flows towards a few direct places. And it's designed to keep them rich and keep us uninformed and fighting each other. All right, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I know you gotta get out of here soon. And I figure this is a good place to kind of cut it off for now. We'll definitely come back and do this again sometime. Unfortunately, there's a lot for us to uncover and talk about, and you're constantly going down rabbit holes. So we can always do a deep dive, and I'll find a better way to next time to have your stuff put up on screen from StreamYard directly, or I'll have you send me a link to the thing, and I'll put it up here so that I don't have to have that little StreamYard thing up in the corner. But man, I appreciate you coming and hanging out and sharing with me some of what you've learned and from your research and what people can look out for. Let's tell people where they can find you. I realize that you got yourself a link tree now, so let me put that up for everyone to see. All right. So linktr.ee/the7cs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I have X obviously at the top. That's where I'm like the most active, live stream on there all the time. But then I also have Rumble YouTube. I'm starting to write articles for Substack and upload videos there as well. I also just partnered with Above Phone,
Cool.
Hakeem Anwar of the Independent Media Group, and I'm actually trying their phone for the next 30 days as like my main device. And you know, so if you're interested in getting off of like big tech and Google and stuff like that, you can check that out. I have a discount for that. I have merch that I make.
Nice.
And a lot of it's pretty good. The lies shirt, I think it might be at the bottom. But that's like the most popular one that I have right now.
Oh, sweet. Streamlabs. Like, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm trying to find a better, I'm trying to find a better distributor right now, but essentially, I'm going in, I'm making all these shirts and hoodies and mugs and stuff by myself, my own designs and all that, and putting it out there for people. I think it's really reasonably priced. If I went any lower, I would make $0, but I'm making like $1 to $5 on each shirt or so.
Sure. I just got hooked up with Ryan over from the Independent Review. He has a thing called Big Frog. And he actually, right now, I believe we just went live with our INN shop under Big Frog. And that's indienewsshop.itemorder.com, and it's all got pricing. And he's got shirts, he's got mugs, he's got stickers and beanies. So you can
fantastic.
Hook up with Ryan and send him over your designs, and I'm guessing that they can set you up with a store as well. And again, you see the pricing is like $20 for a white shirt, couple of bucks more for black if you wanted it in black, or different sizes. I told him just mark it up $5 an item. So we're not trying to set the world on fire. I'd rather get the merch out there and the branding out there for anything. If you put stuff on the back that costs an extra $1 or something. So like here's a Jesse Jet shirt, American tradition, and then on the back it's got an INN logo up by the neck.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Good stuff, man. Follow over on Twitter, over on Rumble, over on Twitter X, the Elon machine. Okay. And then again, over on Substack, that's 7Cs, SEES.substack.com. You can read these couple of articles, and hopefully they'll turn him on for live streaming soon, and we'll get that going. They'll be able to add that to his stream locations. All right, man. We're going to get out of here. Thank you so much to everyone for watching, and thanks to 7Cs for hanging out. We will see you again real soon. This has been INN One-on-One with Indy and 7Cs. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
See you.
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say?